There are 4 very distinct stages to a learning curve. This applies to communication, interpersonal skills, leadership. The first stage of a learning curve is something called unconscious incompetence. I don't know that I don't know. This is why you volunteer for shit, right? You're like, I'll take it on, yeah, that sounds great. And as I begin my learning curve, I go through this stage and I get to the next stage, which is something called conscious incompetence, right? I've just become aware that I don't know, but someone told me fake it until you make it. Just put the suit on, the tie, you'll look good. Our brains alerted to the fact that we don't know what to do. In fact, who has young kids here? Have you tried teaching them to ride a bike, the 5-year-old? You're going to be running, your back's going to be breaking, your sphincter's all going to be tight, and you're going to be running this way, and you're going to let the bike go, and the kid's going to be pedaling away like they could ride a bike. And they're going to turn around, and they're going to see you standing over there, and they're going to go, oh, shit, right? And the brain's just alerted to the consciousness that they're riding the bike by themselves, and they're going to fall. And then eventually they go through to the next stage, which is something called conscious competence. And what I hope to do with you today is show you how you're consciously incompetent, bring you to a stage of conscious competence when it comes down to communication, and leave you with some tools thereafter. But here's the worst part about the learning curve. We don't stop here. We go to the next stage, which is unconscious competence. I do things naturally. I can walk and chew bubblegum and type on my phone, right? Avoid cars. It's amazing how we do this nowadays, right? The danger with the learning curve in everything that we do is we begin at the unconscious incompetence stage, and guess what? We end up at the unconscious competence stage. You know what the problem with the unconscious is? Yeah, it's freaking unconscious, right? We don't know what we don't know, and we don't know what we do. And the way the learning curve truly works is it's continuous, never stops, right? Always goes. Every time we reach the stage of unconscious competence, I'm beginning the new stage of unconscious incompetence at a higher level. How many of you drive a car? How many of you have been like in that moment driving a car where like you've been alerted to the fact that you're about to die or crash because someone decides to honk the horn and let you know that you're unconscious? If you drive cars unconsciously and you behave unconsciously, then we communicate unconsciously, we lead unconsciously, we spouse unconsciously, we parent unconsciously. And what we hope to do is we get to a stage of being able to operate with consciousness. And the way we do that is by falling back to the Burns model. So the Burns model really answers 3 important questions. Number 1, who am I? And not in the philosophical sense, right? But in who am I as a personality? What is the structure of the personality? Number 2, why do I feel the way I do? Where do these emotions and these feelings and these behaviors and these styles come from? You're going to recognize how bad you are in your relationships and how much it was your fault and not the other person, right? You're going to realize that, oh gosh, maybe the person, what they were saying to me, maybe there's truth to that. So why do I feel the way I do? And number 3, where did I develop these habits from? All right, let's get into it. So, Burns said your personality has these 3 main bubbles. And these bubbles, these balloons, these circles, these different components of your personality are a makeup of how we communicate and guide, how we think, and how we feel. He said, let's name them so we could understand exactly what that characteristic or that side of my personality is responsible for. What does it do? What does it sound like? Not only that, I can now start to understand this in other people. And if I could do that, I can now start to communicate differently with them in order to get them to a place of effective communication. Because the truth is, you can't change them, but you can manage the interaction. And he said the first side of your personality is something called the parental state. He says every single person in this room, regardless of how old you are or where you were from or who you were raised by, you have these sides to your personality. And the first is a parental state. Now, this does not mean that you have children. We're talking behavior. Now, the opposite to this is something called the child. Some people have even used this with you in the past. They say, act your age, or stop being so sensitive, or grow up. And then what sits in the middle is something called the adult, the thinking, intelligent side. And so let's kind of break these things down. Every single person in this room has a parent, adult, and a child to their personality. And when we look at the parental side, and these are called ego states. So you've got these ego states to your personality, the different sections. And if we ask, what's the parental ego state for? What's the function of it? Why do I have this parental side of my personality? The behavior or the function of this is to guide. We kind of did it all with you at lunch. Now, the adult side of my personality, this is a side that thinks. This is the problem with life. We sacrifice life's most important decisions to the child ego state. We get married through the child, we get divorced through the child, we take a job through the child, we quit through the child. And what is my child side of my personality? What does it do? It feels, as you use that word a lot, I feel overwhelmed. I feel stressed out. Oh, this culture, it feels really nice. It feels like a warm, fuzzy place and happy place to work. Now let's break these things a little further down. If this is what they do, this one guides, this one thinks, and this one feels, and again, I want to be super clear on this. You have all of these sides of your personality. Some of you have bigger bubbles, some of you have smaller bubbles, depending on whether your parents screwed you up and you're able to get past that or not. Right? But where did I get them from? Well, my parental state, this side of my personality, is what is known as the most notorious learned behavior. One of the greatest things you can do is role model the behavior you want to see. You want to be successful in life, in marriage, in parenting, in your careers, in your friendships, right? In your communities. Act and behave and role model the behavior you want to see. You know the most powerful way to teach, to coach, one of the most effective tools to instill lesson in people is to role model. So the adult develops. This has a lot to do with your frontal lobe. It takes 25 years for your frontal lobe to fully develop. And then finally, my child is primitive. I don't need to develop it. I don't need to learn it. I need to learn how to manage it. All right, so let's break these things down a little further. The parental ego state to your personality is a coin. There's two sides to it. When you think about parents, let's think about your parents, right? Everyone's got the image of their parents. Welcome to the first side of your personality of the parental ego state. It is called the nurturing parent. How many of you, when thinking about parental behavior, were thinking about love and compassion and warmth and nurturance? That's what we call the nurturing parent. By the way, when I call customer service, you know who I want to get on the other end of the phone? A nurturing parent, right? It's what Rob was. Hey, everyone, come on. Whenever you're ready, come down, right? And then you saw another parenting style, which I came in the room afterwards. I said, all right, everyone, pick up your damn chairs. All right, I want all of you to move down here. And I was a little more forceful and directive, right? Welcome to what we call the critical parent. Your parental ego state has two sides to it, two main behaviors. You have your dominant side to your personality, which is known as the critical parent. And you have your other side, which is known as the nurturing parent. And yes, a seesaw, teeter-totter. We have a balance between that. But we all tend to gravitate towards one parental side more than the other. So when you communicate, you're usually communicating more through the one side versus the other. What happens when you get pulled over? What does a critical parent say to you? Well, you go home, you're like, oh, I got a speeding ticket today. Critical parent doesn't go, oh, is everything okay? Right? Were you in a rush? How did it feel? Right? Critical parent's going to say, well, surprised you haven't been caught sooner. Right? I've watched you on the road. You're a lunatic. In fact, they should have taken your driver's license away. In fact, I won't get in the car with you anymore. Right? Now let's think about leadership styles. Critical parent, what kind of behaviors or styles as a leader would the critical parent side of your personality demonstrate or execute or deliver? Strict, not flexible, rigid, maybe a little black and white? Demanding. A little demanding. My way or the highway. All right, told you once, don't make me tell you twice. Let's talk about the critical parent in a positive way, because it sounds like we're just going down the negative road right now, right? Like it's critical and demanding and strict and it's obsessive and controlling. It's all of those. What else could it be in a more of a positive? How does dominance serve us? You want to create high performers, you get your critical parent pushing them. But the trick is how hard do I push? And how long do I push? I want you to all pretend that you live in this carpet, this little square carpet. And this is your comfort zone, this is your self-esteem, everything on this little square pad here, my little Aladdin magic carpet, I'm comfortable with. What the critical parent does is it gets me to sort of go to the edge, and then all of a sudden my carpet gets a little bigger. And if I keep pushing, then the carpet gets bigger. My responsibility as a leader, as a communicator, is to communicate in a way which drives result and drives performance and gets people to improve. Your critical parent will allow you to assert yourself and set limits and express yourself. When it comes down to dealing with those difficult clients and we need to push back and we need to negotiate and we need to hold strong and we need to create accountability, welcome to the critical parent. And the biggest failure, specifically in North America, is the absence of the critical parent. We are operating with passivity. We are operating with withdrawn behavior. Maybe if I think it and feel it, maybe one day they'll just magically, understand it, right? You know what's cool about a critical parent is you know exactly where you stand with them. I know exactly what their opinion is, what their issue is, what their thought is, what their need is, what the expectation is, what the objective is, what the outcome is. Awesome. Can deal with that all day. Now, nurturing parent can also help people grow, can also expand the carpet, but in a little bit of a different way, right? As a leader, I'm going to be way more sort of accommodating sometimes and maybe sort of counseling and cooperative and coaching and mentoring. So we do a lot of work in healthcare. What's really interesting, what I learned about healthcare a long time ago, is it operates on a P&L. It's a business. Hospitals need to be profitable. The more money they make, the better. You know what allows the hospital to make more money? Faster turnaround. It's like McDonald's, like the drive-through. The more we get through this day, the more we get in and out of the beds, the better. They did a study. You know what contributes to someone's recuperation rate? It's the most impactful way that will contribute to someone's recovery. The speed of the recovery. They get healthier faster. You know what it is? The better the bedside manner, the warmer, the more encouraging, the more helpful, right? The more kind, the more compassion, the faster someone heals. Maybe apply a little bit of that in your personal relationships too. Let's jump down to the child. So we got the happy child. This is also known as the most natural child, spontaneous, the withdrawn, and the angry child. And then finally, the adult ego state, the rational, logical, intelligent, functional, mature, comes from the adult side of your personality. And what we're aiming for in effective communication is what we call adult-to-adult transactions.